College students are rallying online and in person against alleged sexual misconduct, saying they are tired of universities not taking this more serious and they have no confidence in the university's investigations. There's even been an Instagram account created to expose individuals that have been accused of sexual assault, and it shares posts that include names, social media handles, and even photos and dating profiles. We are joined by Leslie Wexler, a law professor at the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Professor, thanks so much for joining me this morning. These rallies have been taking place at Loyola, Northwestern. Those are the ones near our area. Other campuses, obviously. Sexual harassment, though, and assaults on campuses, this is nothing new, but this way of targeting the accused is. Tell us what you think has brought us to this point.
Sure. So I think if you looked at earlier protests like Take Back the Night or Slut Walks, they were really about educating campus participants and the public about the nature of sexual assault and the stereotypes that people have and the feeling of unsafeness. And I think after Me Too, there's a real expectation that people already know that they know sexual assaults are common and how devastating they are. And instead, they're moving to focusing on accountability and really thinking about how institutions and individuals should be um, held responsible for these assaults. And so I think the real difference is this expectation that after Me Too, that finally sort of women and other people who are assaulted would be believed and that they would see remedies. But a lot of times they haven't.
It's
And
not.
so I think that has really angered people, and they have taken a cue from other movements and have seen that sort of public visibility and public attention is important to getting their message across,
So
being
what?
taken seriously.
So let's talk about the definition of sexual assault, because I understand it has changed. Explain.
Sure. So campuses are governed by Title IX, and under the Obama administration, campuses were encouraged to sort of regulate a wide variety of activity, including conduct of an unwelcome nature that was sort of sexual in content. But under the Trump administration, the regulations really drew back to a much more narrow definition. Now, under either administration, the Trump administration or the Obama administration, sexual assaults would be covered by both, but sort of activity that was maybe less severe in nature than that, campuses are now free to choose whether to regulate some of that activity as well, and that may lead to a more permissive environment, which can lead people to feel emboldened to engage in worse behavior.
I remember when I first went to college, you could look up on a website how many sexual assault cases there were at each university. It's a horrible fear of parents sending their children off. So many times the victims just don't feel like they're being believed. The brunt of the burden of proof is on them. So now we have people that are creating these websites and showing who these accusers are, saying, you know what, the universities aren't doing enough for me, so we're taking this into our own hands. Is this technique dangerous, though? Could it bring the falsely accused into the spotlight? This is tough.
There are risks to any strategy to dealing with sexual assault. So the risk of sort of the campus system is that you won't be believed and that you won't receive a remedy. But yes, going on social media can bring attention to the accused, to the accuser. But it's interesting, right? So probably the most visible instance of this was when Emma Sulkowicz carried her mattress across the Columbia University campus, and the person that she accused received a lot of attention at the time, but how many people remember his name
Yeah.
now, right? Which isn't to say that there wasn't fallout, but it is to say, I think the concern that this is sort of life ruining for the people who are accused is a bit overblown, though there can be serious consequences. And I think the larger point is it tells us that students are not satisfied with the kind of justice that the campus is providing, and that we really need to look seriously at reforming the system.
Yeah, I was thinking about that case as well. She even carried that mattress during her graduation, and the question was what came of it. Interesting you should bring that up. So bottom line here, what do college campuses need to do to not only keep our young men and women safe, but to also punish the guilty?
Sure. So there are a couple of things that they can do. One is they can do more than the law requires. So, For example, the law under the Trump administration did not require that they cover sort of certain types of off-campus activity, and they can voluntarily choose to regulate that while they're waiting for new Biden regulations. They can do more institutionally about Greek life if they believe that that's a big part of the problem, which a lot of students seem to believe it's a big part of the problem. They can address lesser forms of sexual harassment so that those are taken more seriously. There are a lot of things that they can do sort of independent of reforming the actual sort of reporting process, but then they can reform that as well. So they can, sort of have more, a more friendly system that's easier for accusers to navigate. A lot of people who think about coming forward hear tales from others about sort of how unfriendly and unhelpful the system is, and they decide not to report at all.
Well, definitely some change desperately needed, an interesting new approach. Let's see what kind of impact this has. Leslie Wexler with the University of Illinois Urbana-Champaign. Thanks for joining me.
Thank you for having me.
Appreciate your time. And we'll be right back.